folks, and welcome aboard. I'm Jason, and welcome back to the channel to another video on trains. Now, this, if you may not, which you may not recognize, is an LGB model 2020 locomotive. And this actually happened to be the first locomotive that I actually ever had from LGB. It is old. They were discontinued, I believe, in 1988 or maybe 92, something in that range. I got this in 88 when I was a kid. And, well, it's time for some TLC. So we are going to look at today replacing the traction tire on the engine because it was completely worn out. And we are going to also look at re-greasing the drive mechanism on the locomotive. So we're going to take it over to the workbench. We are going to tear it apart and we are going to do some work on it. And I hope you come along for the ride. So this is an LGB 2090. If you don't recognize it or you've never seen one of these before, I would not be surprised. These were discontinued in 1993, I think. This model here is, I believe, a little bit over 30 years old, and it is time for some TLC and some maintenance. I need to clean out the old grease on this and replace a traction tire. The engine uses the same traction tires, actually, that most LGB engines use, or at least most of the ones I own, which are these. Part number E126174. They're 37.5 millimeters in diameter. That's what they look like. You get 10 in a pack. Engine takes one. I've taken a couple of these apart. I'm sure, well, not this engine specifically, but I am sure that there are instructions somewhere for this. But what I have found is that this process works kind of best if you... well, we have to take the side rods off to be able to replace the traction tire in the first place. And you can see if I turn this over, the state of the traction tire is pretty bad. So we're going to take the traction tires off, or the side rods off completely. These are, by the way, 6 millimeter hex head screws. I'm using a 1/4 inch driver, which is 6.5 millimeters. So it's a little bit bigger than what you should probably be using, but it is sufficient. These are not in anything approaching, I mean, they're just screwed into plastic, so it is not that big of a deal to take them apart. And then we are going to flip it on its back, turn it like this, and we are going to remove this. Engine is actually so old that it predates the change that LGB made to Phillips head screws on the bottom plates. And I'm going to do this as best I can in the what you might call proper way to do this, or proper way, which is to use bits that fit the screws so we don't tear the screws up, although all of these screws are just going into plastic. They shouldn't, we're not talking about rusted metal or something like that, but and I am laying them out, as you can see on the tray over on the side, in the order that they came apart. Oh, and there's oil on there. So let me grab some paper towels. Oil is a good sign. any way we cut this, we would have to take this bottom plate. Well, actually, I guess I could technically replace the traction tire in the state that the engine is in now. But as you can see, this has late 80s, early 90s, I think this is late 80s, LGB grease on the drivetrains. Don't do that. I totally forgot that there are springs and pickups, so you will need to be careful about that, and I will need to go looking for the other one that shot across the other pickup that shot across the room. So we want to be careful. The springs and pickups are right here and here, so you want to be careful. Popping them out them popping out is not actually a problem, but don't have the parts, or don't lose the parts. And I'm going to actually take the springs out as well, and I'll have to go find the other pickup, and I am going to try to wipe up as much of the old grease that I can get to. I am not going to, tear this completely apart. And try and clean it out perfectly. I am going to take these wheels and I am going to use a little bit of dilute simple green and clean them, and then wire brush off the remnants of the traction tire, and we will come back when all of that is done and put this back together. Okay, so the wheels have been cleaned up, or the wheel sets, I should say, have been cleaned up. I didn't even have to wire brush the traction tire off. It was so degraded, it just fell apart, which means it is time to put a traction tire on. This process is always a little bit fiddly, but having the wheel off the engine makes it so much easier, like that. So new traction tire is on. And now we can go about reassembling. I am going to put a small touch of grease on the bearing end of the gears. I don't think it's strictly necessary, but we're going to do it just as a precautionary measure. So touch grease there. The traction tire goes in the back, so I'm going to just drop the traction tire in. The front wheel goes in the front, and I'm not too precise. I don't find, oh wait, before we do that we have to put the contacts back in, so let's do that first. Spring, go spring, spring. I'm sure just as I shoot the thing out across the room again, it would be super handy to have a tool that can do this. Okay, here's the spring. Excuse me while I go find the contact. I have been super lucky that it keeps shooting across onto my other table and then getting stuck where it can't go anywhere. Let's try this a different way. Let's put one in, put the wheel on, put the other one in. Push it all the way down, hook it over the wheel, and then now we can push the wheel. Now, strictly speaking, grease and power time. So with all of this clipped together, I should get the slightest rotation, and then I am going to just apply. A small but reasonable amount of grease. Turn the power off. Remove the leads and do the same dance to put the contact wipers in on the rear driver. And now these are quartered, so they should be aligned so that the drivers are perfectly, or the side rods are perfectly aligned on both sides. And LGB very intelligently designs their side rods to have a reasonable amount of play in them when you get the rod in the right. Side rods here on this engine are also symmetrical. The are asymmetrical. They have to be put on the correct side. So, and of course, these are screws into plastic. So whenever driving screws into plastic, you always want to turn the screw the reverse direction first until you feel it drop into the threading, and then turn it forward, because if you just drive it straight in, it will cut a new thread, and you don't really want that. You want it to use the existing thread. So one side. Now we will do the other side. Actually, before I put the other side rods on, let's put the bottom plate back on. So LGB bottom plate came off this way, I think. No, came off this way. Again, not quite symmetric. So you can see the holes in the alignment to help you line things up. And again, plastic or metal screw into plastic, always drive backwards or turn backwards until... No, I think that was wrong. I think I had it right the first time around. No, that definitely is not putting things where they're supposed to be. So back around the way it was, the way everything lines up. And that is how we are going to put this on, is the way everything lines up. So, again, metal screw into plastic. Turn it backwards or back it out until you feel it drop in, that it is in the threads, and then you can tighten it down. Same process on the other end. This keeps you from putting tons of thread cuts in the that one is just getting driven in, because it does not seem to have a point where it wants to drop down. Could be because it's a fine pitch screw. Yeah, that one did it. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is put the last side rod back down. So again, these are 6mm. Ideally, you would do this with a 6mm driver. I only have a 1/4 inch, but it's not like these are being gronked down on. Side rods are on. I think these wheels could be a little bit better aligned. So we're going to fix that, because it bothers me. I am one gear. I mean, on the plus side, it's not like you have an infinite number of possibilities. Each driver only has so many gears, teeth that it can engage in. So and to my eye, looking at the rear driver needs to come forward 1 tooth. That looks much better. So with that in place, we can button this back up. So there we go. It has been cleaned, re-lubricated, and traction tired. I will probably also run some fine either Scotch-Brite or emery cloth on the wheels just to clean up the stuff. And of course, this needs to be run in, which we will take a look at in a second. So that was my process for restoring, doing some maintenance, long needed maintenance on this locomotive, the LGB 2090. And runs good. Everything seems to be good now. Didn't need to do any terribly major work. And actually, aside from the contacts, the brushes for the wheels going flying, this one was a lot less of a problem than I kind of expected it to be. I do, of course, need to get a new headlight for it. Gotta figure something out with that. Or I still have the one that was on there, but the little mounting clip broke, so I will probably need to do something about re-gluing that in place or reattaching it, or if I could find a new headlight somewhere, possibly doing that. I had considered potentially upgrading this to having actual lights with LEDs. That's actually really doable these days in these small format headlights, but that would all be a project for another day. So if you found this useful or interesting, let me know, leave a comment. If you have an old story about an old LGB engine that you grew up with or got started in your LGB train experience with, let me know about that as well. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.